For 50 years, they've been the absolute driving force behind one of the biggest icons in rock music. We're talking selling out stadiums, defining a whole sound. But for decades, their name was nowhere to be found on the album covers. So how does that happen? Well, that's the incredible paradoxical story of the E Street Band. On stage, they were a full-blown force of nature. But on the record, they were almost like ghosts. So today, we're going to dig into that paradox. How does a group of musicians become total legends, even when, officially, they were just the guys in the background? To really get the E Street Band, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. And that means heading to the vibrant, kind of gritty, and super competitive music scene of Asbury Park, New Jersey, back in the early 1970s. So Springsteen didn't just throw together a backing band. No, he handpicked the absolute best players from that whole Jersey Shore scene. These were guys who were already seasoned musicians from local bands like Steel Mill and Dr. Zoom and the Sonic Boom. Each one brought their own unique style to the table, and together they formed that original lineup. The lineup was a bit of a revolving door at first, but in 1974, that was the big turning point. A couple of key members left, and then in came this absolute powerhouse duo, Roy Bittan on piano and the mighty Max Weinberg on drums. This wasn't just a simple lineup change. This was the moment that the band's iconic driving sound was really born. So where did that legendary name even come from? Well, despite the famous song, it wasn't 10th Avenue Freeze Out. It was actually way, way simpler. They used to rehearse in a garage on E Street in Belmar, New Jersey. It was the home of their original keyboardist, David Sancious' mom. Talk about a humble beginning for a name that would one day be known all over the world. So, as they started powering some of rock's most iconic albums, this really weird tension started to build. You see, they had these two totally different personas, absolute superstars on stage, but pretty much phantoms on the actual record sleeves. And right here, this is that central paradox in action. It's wild. You'd go out and buy a massive album like Born to Run, and the cover, it just said Bruce Springsteen. The band members, sure, they were listed inside, but just as individual musicians. But then, the second they hit the stage, it was always Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, a single, unified, celebrated force. And Springsteen himself made that distinction crystal clear every single night. His famously elaborate, totally over-the-top introductions framed them not as just some backing band, but as this larger-than-life force of nature. And you know what? The audience believed every single word of it. But then, after years of non-stop touring and recording, Springsteen made a decision in 1989 that put the band's entire future into serious doubt. He formally dissolved the E Street Band. Can you imagine? After nearly 2 decades together, the members were just told their services weren't needed anymore. And just like that, the family went their separate ways. But during that decade-long break, the members proved they were so much more than just Springsteen support. You had Max Weinberg becoming Conan O'Brien's famous band leader, a face you'd see on TV every night. Others launched their own solo careers, became highly sought-after producers, or even toured with rock royalty. They were all incredible artists in their own right. Then, a full decade later, the band would reunite. But their triumphant return would be marked by some really profound and devastating loss. So in 1999, 10 years after he dismissed them, Springsteen got the E Street Band back together for an incredibly successful world tour. The band was back, and let me tell you, fans all over the globe went wild. But that triumphant reunion was soon hit by tragedy. In 2008, they lost founding keyboardist Danny Federici to melanoma. And then, just 3 years after that, the absolute heart and soul of the band, the legendary saxophonist Clarence "the Big Man" Clemons, died after a stroke. 2 irreplaceable pillars of their sound suddenly gone. Then, in 2014, came this moment of recognition that was a long, long time coming, an honor for the band itself, totally separate and distinct from Springsteen. They were finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But just as guitarist Niels Lofgren said, it was bittersweet. This recognition was so overdue, and tragically, 2 of the founding members who deserved to be there most, Danny Federici and Clarence Clemons, weren't there to see it. This bittersweet recognition really helped to cement their status, not just as a great band, but as an enduring institution, one forged through both triumph and tragedy. After everything they'd been through, especially with the losses, Springsteen actually changed his iconic introduction. He added the phrase death-defying. And suddenly, it wasn't just a cool line anymore. It was a real testament to their resilience and a tribute to their fallen brothers. Their legacy is now, quite literally, set in stone. This plaque at Madison Square Garden is a permanent tribute to a musical family that has weathered absolutely everything together for half a century. The tours, the breakup, the reunion, and the mourning. You know, the story of the E Street Band gives us a pretty powerful answer to that question. Immortality isn't just about whose name is on the album cover. It's about the spirit you see on that stage. It's about the brotherhood behind the scenes, and it's about a bond that's powerful enough to outlast anything.